Welcome to Category Visionaries, the show dedicated to exploring exciting visions for the future from the founders who are on the front lines building it. In each episode, we'll speak with a visionary founder who's building a new category or reimagining an existing one. We'll learn about the problem they solve, how their technology works, and unpack their vision for the future. I'm your host, Brett Stapper, CEO of Frontlines Media. Now let's dive right into today's episode.
Hey everyone, and welcome back to Category Visionaries. Today, our guest is Vahan, co-founder and CEO of SuperAnnotate, a data labeling platform that's raised over $53 million in funding. Vahan, how are you?
Good. How are you, Brett?
I'm doing great, and I'm super excited for this conversation. So let's go ahead and jump right in. Talk to us about everything that you're building today.
Yeah. So thanks for having me, first of all. So what we're building is kind of a data labeling infrastructure, but it's more concentrated on centralizing all your AI data operations and doing different things to produce really high quality training data. Our end goal is to provide the data set that will result the state of the art model. There is a bunch of different tools that we're building to make that happen.
Talk to us about the discovery of this problem. What were you doing in your life previously that you knew this was a problem worth solving?
Yeah, so back in 2018, I had a paper in one of the largest computer vision conferences. And during that conference, I was a PhD student, and when I was presenting my paper, I also kind of built a simple prototype on top of my paper. And there were a lot of companies that were sponsoring that event, and they were data labeling companies. So I kind of showed my algorithm, and then there was catching a lot of the company's attention, what I have built in, how fast it was working and how accurate it was working. So a couple of them were kind of offering me like a potential to buy the algorithm. And that was kind of the initial moment, aha moment, I would say. Oh, maybe we shouldn't really kind of sell anything and we should do a business. So I called my brother, we got aligned. Next month, we dropped out from our PhD programs and started the business together.
And growing up, did you know someday that you were going to be, a technology founder? Like, where did that idea to even start doing this come from for you?
Yeah, absolutely not. I mean, growing up, I didn't really know. So we were kind of education hungry. So we wanted to study. So I did like bachelor's, master's, PhD. Obviously, didn't really finish the PhD, but it was more like get educated ourselves until we see what we're going to do. And it was the university in Sweden that kind of coached me and then entered the entrepreneurial mindset, because one of the nice things about Sweden is that the entire PhD work belongs to a PhD student only. And there is zero IP rights. Plus, they're kind of helping you patent your algorithm and do different things. So they were kind of the reason that they pushed me forward to think about business. So big round of kudos to Swedish universities to doing that.
So it looks like you founded the company in 2018. Is that when you moved to the US, or what year did you move to the US?
Yeah, so January 2019, more or less, we moved right after we found the company. We got into an accelerator program in Berkeley and started kind of doing our initial sales during the accelerator. So
what was going on inside your mind as you were, flying to the US? You know that you're founding this company or starting this company. Like, take us back. What was your state of mind on that plane ride?
Good question. So at that time, I guess we were kind of a little bit more naive because we just came from academic background, didn't really know what we're doing. And during the accelerator program, we were just keep reading papers as well. But it was like not really the right thing to do, because the accelerator was nice enough to kind of push us towards like, hey, you have to sell now. And at that time, actually, we got one introduction to an autonomous driving company, and autonomous driving was booming at the time. And my algorithm was really perfectly fitting for autonomous driving. So we got one huge contract for someone that is still going through an accelerator. That was kind of the big thing at that time to push this forward, right?
What about the early marketing strategy? What did that look like for you?
So marketing-wise, we were just trying to be a little bit like tech savvy, keep pushing the algorithm and so on. As we grow, though, we realized that even on a marketing side, this is the one niche problem we're solving is not really enough, right? So we diversified quite a lot and covered other modalities. So on a marketing side, we're putting a lot of attention on demand generation and then creating material that will be industry-leading materials for others to know how to deal with high quality data and so on, right? So it's more educative marketing, I would say.
And can you talk to us about the go-to-market motion that you've built out? I know in the pre-interview, you mentioned a unique go-to-market. Talk to us about that.
Yeah, so our go-to-market changed quite a bit because initially we were kind of building this tool and we had the workforce internally sitting next to our engineers and providing the services with our tool. Once we got the seed funding, we decided that we're going to go fully on SaaS and then build an infrastructure around training data, which is something that we're still doing. So on that end, didn't really change much. But moving forward, we kind of were doing the data labeling services and the software. So if you look at the industry these days, there are companies that are only providing the software, and then they're saying like, hey, you have to take care of your internal team and build your data sets using your internal, right? So those are only software companies. The other type of companies are only providing services, and their big kind of strengths are, how do I source very, very niche type of professions, whether it's PhDs, whether it's, I don't know, engineers with 10 years of experience, whether it's programmers with 10 years of experience and so on. On that end, what we are realizing over the last 6-7 months is that we really built state-of-the-art infrastructure for training data, but we are also realizing that the service market is very fragmented in some sense, and there are different companies that have very big strengths and weaknesses, and they're operating in different geographies and so on. So once you're trying to work with several different companies, then there is not really an easy way to understand where your data is, who is responsible for the data. Once you get the data, how do you share that data between the engineering teams? How do you work with multiple different service companies that are really good at their own things, right? And so the idea came that we should really build an infrastructure that will really help enterprise customers to work with several different teams and also their internal teams so they can kind of collaborate together and work with several companies rather than just one, right? So we created this differentiated model where they're buying one platform, but that enables them to work with all best-in-class service companies all in one place.
This show is brought to you by Frontlines Media, a podcast production studio that helps B2B founders launch, manage, and grow their own podcast. Now, if you're a founder, you may be thinking, I don't have time to host a podcast. I've got a company to build. Well, that's exactly what we built our service to do. You show up and host, and we handle literally everything else. To set up a call to discuss launching your own podcast, visit frontlines.io/podcast. Now, back to today's episode.
What's it been like for you learning how to build a go-to-market motion? We talked about you didn't have a background here. What was that like, your journey, and any lessons that you can share that you've learned along the way?
Yeah, so it was a long journey, I would say. And part of the lessons that we learned was understanding that service market will stay fragmented and we shouldn't really kind of do everything and compete in that market, right? That's an easy realization for now and when we're looking back, but it was quite a hard thing to kind of move away from the things that is generating revenue from you, and you kind of share that revenue with your competitors that you used to call them competitors. Now they're really a true partners for you. So that's one of the kind of mindset shift, is an important learning that we're still kind of 80-90% there, that we are kind of trying to build an ecosystem with our partners, not really trying competing with them and so on.
What would you say has been the most important go-to-market decision that you've made to date? And take us back, how you made that decision and everything that led up to it.
Probably this last decision is the most important one, because we are really trying to create an infrastructure that can have a very 120+% net dollar retention. But oftentimes data labeling can be seen more lumpy business. It can kind of grow up and down. It's more like a project-based business. But if you're trying to kind of consolidate all the work in one place, then this is becoming more sticky and it is becoming higher net dollar retention business than if you're only providing services.
What about on the competitive landscape side? So when you think about competitors, how are you positioning yourself?
Yeah, so I would say that on the software competitor side, we probably have like 3 or 4 competitors that have good offerings. And then before, when we used to kind of compete with service side of things, for example, Scale AI would be the industry leader, I would say, on the service side. And as we were kind of seeing them a competitor, we're not really seeing that anymore. And then we would really love to collaborate and then kind of create better data sets together.
What about in terms of category? When it comes to category, I know data labeling is probably too broad. How are you thinking about the category that you're in and how you communicate the value of that category?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so Data labeling is kind of a big category, I agree. But what we're really trying to do is, in a sense, create some type of database for training data. So imagine like Databricks, but very, very specialized niche for training data. That can be a huge market just because managing training data is becoming harder and harder. If you go back 10 years ago, machine learning data was only on spreadsheets. And then as you're kind of moving forward, that's becoming more and more unstructured. It becomes more and more harder to manage. And you need a different sort of tool sets to build that database. And ultimately, this is what we're building, right? And data labeling and the services is part of that solution, but it's not really the only solution that we're building.
What does the go-to-market team look like today?
In terms of like number of sales?
Yeah.
So our go-to-market team at the moment is around 6 people in the selling side. And overall, we have around 20 people that are kind of handling the customer relationships, as well as solution engineering is super important because as you're touching enterprise AI, your solution engineers are more or less the goal part of your team, because if they're not really enabling properly the enterprise customers, there is no way you're going to do proper go-to-market. There is no way you will be able to do a proper go-to-market strategy.
Makes perfect sense.
This show is brought to you by the Global Talent Co., a marketing leader's best friend in these times of budget cuts and efficient growth. We help marketing leaders find, hire, vet, and manage amazing marketing talent for 50 to 70% less than their US and European counterparts. To book a free consultation, visit globaltalent.co.
As I mentioned there in the intro, you've raised over $53 million to date. What have you learned about fundraising throughout this journey?
Fundraising is tricky. So one of the controversial things that I learned about fundraising was that whenever I was actively fundraising, I was doing something wrong. So the times that I successfully fundraised, it was a passive times when an investor found me, just asked for a coffee, and then I went for a coffee without really in mind to fundraise. And then they were the ones that kind of convinced me to take the money. Whenever I was going to kind of fundraise, it wasn't really that easy, which is kind of a very controversial thing. You're talking with 50 investors and none of them are giving you money. And then you're talking this one investor that came and found you, and then you're raising a lot easier than before.
Let's talk about 2025 priorities. So we're somehow already 4 months into 2025. Definitely feels like it's flying by. For you, what are the top priorities for 2025?
Yeah, so a lot of automations within the platform, right? And the automations can mean like evals. Part of the evals within the datasets can be automated. So we have this term called LLM judges, automatic evaluations of like responses and so on. So we call them like SuperAnnotate agents. And I know that agent is a buzzword, but like agents on our side are the taskers that can do small sort of AI data operations, either kind of rate the conversation or do something a lot more complex. And in terms of that, you can also do synthetic data generation, because part of the task can be given this certain data, create a similar type of data sets that is not really common within the data set that is given and so on. So it's like a lot of the agent work that is coming. And we're also kind of the other big things that we're thinking is creating more centralized data hub where people can query and find the edge cases a lot easier, and then kind of send those edge cases for labeling and then close the feedback a lot faster. So we call that multimodal unstructured data store.
Let's talk about your growth before we wrap up here. So I know you grew 3x last year. What do you attribute to that? It's not easy to achieve. What did you really get right?
I think when we see that the Gen AI was coming, we realized that different Gen AI use cases are very, very different from each other. So part of the learnings that we have is that we build the platform in a way that it's fully customizable to any use case that you want. So if tomorrow there will be a new agentic workflow, then we'll be able to support, right? And previously, what we were doing is kind of giving a point solution that was working for certain use cases. Let's say if you're putting bounding boxes on images. And that was not going to fly with the Gen AI. And as we kind of did this shift earlier, when ChatGPT came out, we started like seeing significant growth in our sales pipeline and close rates.
Final question for you. Let's zoom out 3 to 5 years into the future. What's the big picture vision look like here?
3 to 5 years should be the years of the enterprise AI. We're still seeing that the frontier labs and foundational model companies are the ones that are building similar type of technologies. Our big bet is still on the enterprise AI. So companies have the data sets that is really sitting in silo, but that data set is a gold. And the way you will be able to kind of transform that data set to a training data fast and accurate manner, this will define your moat moving forward, right? So we're really trying to empower a lot of different enterprises creating those moat data sets so they can really stay ahead of the AI curve. And that's not really coming in 1 year. So we're really seeing like a huge benefits for the next 3 to 5 years, especially in the enterprise AI world.
Amazing. I love the vision. I really have loved this conversation. It's been a ton of fun and I learned a lot from you. And I know the audience is also going to learn a lot from you. Before we wrap here, if there's any founders that are listening in that just want to follow along with you in your journey, where should we send them? Where should they go?
Yeah, so you can please follow me on LinkedIn. I'm very active there. So Vahan Petrosyan, and our website is the best place to find both about our platform, the documentation, and what we do. And please don't really feel shy to request a demo. Sometimes I'm still doing demos, and this is part that I really love. And hopefully we can get connected through the demo as well.
Amazing. Well, thanks so much for taking the time. It's been a lot of fun.
Thanks so much.
This episode of Category Visionaries is brought to you by Frontlines Media, Silicon Valley's leading podcast production studio. If you're a B2B founder looking for help launching and growing your own podcast, visit frontlines.io/podcast. And for the latest episode, search for Category Visionaries on your podcast platform of choice. Thanks for listening, and we'll catch you on the next episode.